Thomas Foguenne is a composer and pianist, originally from Belgium, but now calling Taiwan home as well. He has written musical scores for numerous films and shows in Taiwan, Europe, and the United States. He recently received critical acclaim for his soundtrack for the multinational film Stranger Eyes, which won the 2024 Golden Horse Award for Best Original Film Score and the 2025 Taipei Film Festival Award for Best Original Score. And why don't we just start with the most basic question. What led you down this path of writing movie soundtracks in an international market and specifically here in Taiwan?
But those two film for music in Taiwan are linked, but it's kind of an accident. So I studied music, classical music, contemporary classical music, composition and piano, and I did work as a contemporary classical composer for a year and felt kind of isolated because the audience for that is very niche. And that's left me very frustrated. After a year or so, I quit music altogether. I became a private chef for 3 years, and then I missed music too much. And at that time, I had two good friends living here. They invited me to come over, and I kind of fell in love with the place. I stayed here for studying Chinese, Mandarin, and during those 2 years of studying Mandarin Chinese, I started to work with some students on their graduation films and doing film music.
I think you brought up a point that many content creators or creative people encounter is that sometimes you need a reset.
Yeah.
And so maybe cooking for you, being a chef, was your chance to reset. And so has that changed dramatically how you look at music or how you approach music? Or did it just help you reconnect with that inner love you had for music?
I don't think it changed. It was a very needed break. I don't think it changed because after those 2 years, when I came back to music, I jumped into the film music universe that I was really new to. And the first film scores I wrote were very much similar to the music I've been writing more maybe as a teenager.
Do you define your music in a certain style or genre? And also then when you approach projects, is there a certain type of project which attracts you more than others? Or do you take on challenges that maybe are challenges you never expected, but it's a challenge?
Of course, there are styles I feel very comfortable in that are my musical mother languages, and at the same time I really enjoy when there is a new challenge, something that I've never done, a new style, a new genre that has been brought up by the producer or the director. It feels very exciting, but there is a limit. There are styles or genres of music that I couldn't do, that are too far away, or and maybe this is expanding, I'm not sure. I don't really have maybe enough recul, distance. I don't have enough. Sorry, my English is a bit
No. You're not enough distance from the subject. From my perspective is still in the now. I'm not like looking at my life from the distance of 10 years and saying, this is. It has expanded. So when I started to write music for films here for a students project, I was writing, like I said, in the style of music I was writing as a teenager, something very classical tonal music, very sweet piano music. And then from what was asked from me, from what I heard here and there, maybe I think it expanded. And which is something that is very important is when you write contemporary classical music, the genre, the style you write in defines you. In film music, the genre or the style of music you write in is a choice, just like, I don't know, the wardrobe of the actors, the buildings, that the decor, the background that you have to build for the films. So it's a tool. So the more tools you know, the better. And you're not defined by that tool. You just mentioned now that with a film, the music has to fit the film more.
But so you have to approach it from that point of view. And in the past, you have done several documentaries where you're dealing with some very hard-hitting subjects: colonialism, identity, migration, and war. So how do you approach these topics musically? And do you feel a different sense of responsibility? Here you're telling an important story. Does your music have to reflect that, or does your music just have to complement that?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions there. It's very deep. First, it was very enjoyable, and it was very important for me. First time I did a documentary, I was a bit paralyzed, mainly because I didn't know whether I had to adopt a different way of scoring a film that was a documentary that was about some truth. But quite rapidly, I grabbed that fiction and documentaries are not that different. They are telling stories. Even the most fictional fiction is still resonating with us and with the real world we live in, and with all the things we imagine about that real world. So it's mixed together. So now when I score a film, and it's funny because it happened 2 months ago, when I score a film, I don't put myself in I'm doing a fiction, or I'm doing a documentary. I score a film. There is a story, there are elements, there are ambiences, atmospheres, there are feelings, there are messages, there are symbols. It changes from one director to another, from one film to another, but not as much from fiction or to documentary. And I mentioned 2 months ago I scored a film, I finished the film, and weeks later I was discussing with a friend about the film, and they asked me if the film was a documentary and a fiction, and I had to think. I hadn't thought about that.
I'm curious, when you're doing a score for a movie, how much of the input, especially the creative process, is it all you, or is it you talking to the director, or is the director giving you specific instructions, or is it a little bit of a give and take?
It's very different from one project to another, I would say, but it's a bit, it's black and white. But the more commercial the project, the more directions I get. You can think of it as like you do a Hollywood big movie. If you do a Hollywood big movie, it's like a factory with thousands of workers, and the work is sliced into small chunks. So the kind of music, there are references for everything, and you just have to follow the book. And for on the other end of the spectrum, if you do a small, independent, zero budget, I'm really going the other end of the spectrum. The inputs you're going to bring to the project can be potentially much bigger, which is what kind of music where, and actually I enjoy both. The one end of the spectrum is more like you're an artisan. You're doing a nice piece of furniture, but you have a to-do list. And on the other end of the spectrum, maybe there are more artistry in that. Although I don't like to categorize and more choices that will determine the whole flavor of the films.
So let's talk about a concrete example. So your movie Stranger Eyes, you did the musical score for that. You've won awards both at the Golden Horse and the Taipei International Film Festival. That's where I met you recently. So what is that type of experience like? And how did you approach that?
It's a beautiful team, a big team, international team, with a great director that has won awards, and great actors, and a great script. But yet the way to work on that project was very like a small scale. I mean, I was doing my music, I was sending some of the pieces as I wrote them to the director himself, and we were just like talking back and forth.
So when you started doing the score for this movie, obviously you're always hoping to get some recognition, but I doubt that was necessarily your motivation at the time, that you're going to win all these awards for the score.
Yeah.
So how does it feel that when you do get that recognition? And B, like while you were doing this score, did you kind of realize that there's something special about this movie, about the circumstances, maybe your chemistry working with the filmmakers, that you knew that this was going to be a score that's going to make an impact?
Yeah, of course you don't think about that when you create, and of course, but it was an awarded director, so it was a bit impressive starting working with him. But then he's very nice, he's very is a deeply a person deeply in love with film. So it was, I forgot about this all. But then during the process of creating the music, some inputs coming from me, but a lot coming from him, made us design a score that was special. Like mixing, the choice of mixing instruments from Balinese gamelan and electronics. It's not totally unheard of, but it makes something a bit special. As a filmmaker, you are really crafting something unique, and you're really taking the film somewhere where it has its own voice, its own sound, and that feels so good.
That was Golden Horse award-winning composer and musician Thomas Foguenne. For Taiwan Talk, I'm Tim Berge.